Hello everybody, here we are today talking about Chicago and the fact that they are the first team eliminated from playoff contention and whether or not that's a bad thing. So before we get into that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So yes, the Hawks have not seen playoff hockey in the Windy City for now 4 seasons, and if we're kind of being honest with ourselves here, it stretches back to 2017 when they made it in 2020. They were last in their division, but made it thanks to the qualifying round. And I get it, obviously they upset Edmonton in the qualifying round, but really they wouldn't have made it. So if we're looking at this, it's been close to a decade, and this season in itself has been kind of frustrating for what some fans might have been hoping for, and up until very recently they were dead last in league standings. In fact, prior to last night's win, they had gone 3-13-3 in their last 19 games and hadn't won back-to-back games since early December. So like 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, had the worst points percentage in that time, even though Arizona had a 14-game losing streak in that spell. But thankfully, with a win last night against Anaheim, very good win, mind you, they were able to get back-to-back wins and kind of give you something to be optimistic about, which really this is kind of where we're talking about. Is this a bad thing that the Hawks are now eliminated from the playoffs, and what are some reasons that you could be optimistic? Well, the first one is Connor Bedard. The 2023 first overall pick has been a very, very interesting player to watch, and certainly somebody that is going to be a big piece of the league in the coming years. Over his past 2 games, he has 8 points and is close to averaging about a point per game over the course of this season, and is a huge reason why Hawks fans probably have to feel happy about where this team could be headed thanks to his play. Not only this, but the fact that he is in a case where he could get some serious hardware being the Calder. I think that is another thing that you could say, well, this year might be hard, but there are some things to be happy with. For him to win the Calder, I think it's going to be one of those deals where you look at some things like points and probably say, well, with him being the leader there, he's going to wind up getting it. Does he deserve it? That's really up to you. I feel like certain fans of other teams probably would make the case for their guy winning the Calder. But looking at Bedard and seeing the fact that he's been able to average nearly a point per game without some of the better line mates in the league, you'd have to think that in the coming years, A, he's going to get better as he probably is going to get more physically built and just used to the NHL and just how everything works. But B, with better line mates, he's going to be seeing a second year that is going to be really, really big in terms of expectations and how high this ceiling could go. As for other things to be optimistic about, you could be looking at this and saying, like Kevin Korchinski is getting a lot of minutes and some other individuals as well. Now, I know Korchinski's not had a year that you're super thrilled about. Looking at plus minus, I know a lot of people are just going to look at this and say, oh, he's terrible. Well, why is he struggling this year? Why is Bedard considered to have a good year, even though his plus minus isn't great? All other things that are worthy of talking about. And for me, it just comes down to getting some of these younger guys minutes, which is something that I think you can look at in a positive light. Now, Korchinski has struggled. He is somebody that is really, really had a hard time getting the puck out of their end, but is also somebody Chicago has seen be one of those guys to carry the puck out of their defensive zone. He has a high rate of defensive zone giveaways, so that's something that's got to be cleaned up, but is still a very young man. He's 19 years old and is, I think, in a spot where he can learn during the season, but also during the offseason has got a great opportunity to learn from what went right and what went wrong. And next year is somebody that you're hoping to be a better year for him. Now, I know, too, he's had a very hard year off the ice. I believe his father passed away earlier in the season. 19-year-old kids should not have to deal with the loss of their parents, and as somebody that lost a parent at 20, I completely, well, I don't say want to say completely, but I do understand a bit where he's coming from, and I think is just a guy that's going to have a lot going for him going into next season, as well as some other young guys like Reichel and Kaiser. And I know that some of these individuals are not having the years that you're hoping for. Again, remember, they are young, and there's other pieces of this that are interesting as well. Alex Vlasic is a little bit older than them. I thought he was 24 going on 25 for whatever reason, but he's actually 22 going on 23. He has seen a big boost in minutes compared to his first year to this season being his third season. He went from about 14 minutes to 19 minutes to 21 minutes and has been probably their best defensive defenseman this year, or just somebody that's given them the most defensive value. He's an RFA, and I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen here with Chicago, but I think the deal they hand out with him could very well say, this is going to be somebody that could be part of our blue line for the future, and this is what we see him as. Now, What are they going to give him? I couldn't tell you, but again, a 22-year-old that is probably the best young defenseman you have at the moment is probably going to be a guy that you are thinking about giving a decent deal to. I don't know if it's going to be a midterm deal or a long-term deal, but he's going to get an extension of some sort. And you have to think too that some other young individuals that are prospects and high prospects for this team are still not even there at the moment. Oliver Moore and Frank Nazar are individuals that are seen as a part of this future, not necessarily saying that they will be, but there are more reinforcements on the way, and the Hawks are just in a great spot at the moment where they are going to get a top 4 pick, and if things go well for them, and I say well in the terms of losing, they could land the top pick in this year's draft for a second straight year. You would have to say that if this is going to be a guy like Macklin Celebrini, that's great. And in general, you would have to imagine they're probably going to go forward in this draft. I don't know. It's tough because, again, what route do they want to go? But either way, if they do go with a guy like Celebrini, you have a good chunk of your top 6 figured out, and you're feeling just overall really optimistic about some of the pieces going forward. So overall, should Chicago fans be happy that the team isn't in the playoffs? I'd argue no, but I would just like to emphasize that this year they weren't really going to be a team that was looking to contend and be a playoff team. I think a lot of us were hoping that they would take a step forward, and they just have got out to a slow start for a variety of reasons and have dealt with some things like the Bedard injury, which sidelined him for a bit. So I think that there are plenty of reasons to be more optimistic about next year. Again, younger guys developing, Bedard taking a step forward, even though he's already looked good now. Some younger prospects making their NHL debuts, and hopefully things are going well for them there. And then maybe a NHL-ready player that can just slide into the lineup right away in the first game and have a positive impact for the team going forward next season. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs again next year? No, I really don't. I said, I think in my season preview this year, I didn't see Chicago being a playoff team. Next year, again, barring something big happening, I don't really see them being a playoff team that season either. But if somebody like Korchinski gets things figured out and is, again, solidifying himself as somebody that could be part of this top 4. Vlasic has another good year that looks really, really good there, as well as a guy like Bedard being an over a point per game producer and generating a lot of offense for you. Amazing right there, seeing top prospects possibly be able to make this team better offensively, which is going to be big next season. I think are all just things that are going to look really, really good for this team. So the Hawks are bad, but in a way they could be good. So anyway, what are your thoughts on the Hawks being the first team eliminated from playoff contention, and what season do you think they will make the playoffs next? Let me know those thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe, have a great night, and you go love hockey, alright? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.